If you would open your Bibles with us to Ezekiel chapter 37, our foundational text for this series entitled CPR. This is part 4, Creating Personal Revival. And notice the word of the Lord in Ezekiel chapter 37, and beginning with the first verse. The hand of the Lord came upon me and brought me out in the spirit of the Lord and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. And then he caused me to pass by them all around, and behold, there were very many in an open valley. And indeed they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And so I answered, O Lord God, you know. And again he said to me, prophesy to these bones, and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And thus says the Lord God to these bones, surely I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. Creating Personal Revival, part 4. Isn't it amazing that sometimes that God will cause something to die in your life so that you will find what's really important? We've just discovered that in terms of generating personal revival in your own soul, where you need God to breathe upon you, because you can sometimes go through periods of life where you experience a dry spell, or you feel as though your bones are dry, or the people's bones around you are dry. But if revival is going to happen in our world, it has to begin with us, and then it flows outward. It always starts inward, and then it flows outwardly. And so we've pointed out that step number 1 is to go back to rediscover your purpose. You go back and rediscover your purpose. If you get away from your purpose, you'll lose your fire. You will lose your fire. You have to turn whatever is hurting your life, turn your pain into purpose. Because life is always richer when you understand its meaning and its purpose. And we should always have a cause that is greater than ourselves. Life is so much more than just about us. You live your life on purpose. Everything that God does, he does on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. And then part 2 is to revisit your passions. Revisit your passions. Your life becomes dry and dull, boring and insipid when you walk away from the things that you were passionately in love with at an earlier point in your life. And so you have to always go back and revisit your passions that are in your life, because purpose produces a passion. Whenever you're operating in your God-ordained purpose, you are passionate about life. You wake up with zest and vigor and vim and vitality, and you live this life with the enthusiasm, which is nothing more than God on the inside trying to express himself on the outside. It is in Theo, God on the inside, working himself through us, revealing himself even through our flesh. The third part is to reevaluate the people in your life. Reevaluate the people in your life. And I taught you about the law of the inner circle, that those that are closest to you will determine your level of success. And so you know about the folks that are in your life. You show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And so when you get around other passionate people who are on fire for God, something in your heart catches a fire. You have to be very careful about the company that you keep. You are known not only by the company that you keep, but also the company that you shun. You can't walk with everybody. And then you will begin to discover that sometimes breakups are meant for makeups, and sometimes breakups are meant for wake-ups. And God will wake you up and let you know who you cannot walk with in this life. And that brings us to step number 4 here. It is to re-examine the problems in your life. Re-examine the problems in your life. Re-examine the problems in your life. There's somebody who's in this place today that's facing a problem. There's more than one person, I bet you that. And have you ever been in a problem, and the pain that the problem is producing in your life is so intense that it makes you start questioning stuff? You ever had pain to the degree that you start asking yourself some questions because something that you started out very sure of, you're no longer sure of anymore because of the intensity of the pain? That God, if this is your will, just because you're going through so much pain, and you start questioning the very nature, and you start asking questions like, should I leave or should I stay? Have you ever been there to where you got into something and it looked like it was good at the onset, but then you ran into some problem and it started hurting you, and you start wondering, should I leave or should I stay? Should I throw in the towel or should I tough it out? You ever been in a place where you've had to ask those kinds of questions? Should I stick with what I have, or should I pursue what I really want? Have you ever been in the place where the pain produced in your life was so intense that it made you question and wonder, do I really still want this? Do I really still want it? There's a song that's entitled, He Said. It has some interesting words, and it reminds us. It said, so your life feels like it don't make sense, and you think to yourself, I'm a good person, so why do these things keep happening? Why you got to deal with them? You may be knocked down, but don't forget what he said. He said, I won't give you more than you can take. I might let you bend, but I won't let you break. And I'll never ever let you go. Don't forget what he said. It's amazing how sometimes you'll go through some stuff and God said, I'll let you bend, but I won't let you break. He knows just how much you can bear. Touch your neighbor and say, he knows. And you know, I realize that God actually grows us through the problems that are in our life. So you have to re-examine the problems that are in your life. Re-examine the problems that are in your life. If you're the source of the problem, you have the ability to change it. If it's the devil who's the source of your problem, rebuke him. But what do you do if your problem comes from God? What in the world do you do if God is the source of your problem? And may I just remind you that when you look around in the world and you begin to think that we've got so many problems in our world, that it is really not that our problems are too big. The real problem is that the people trying to solve them are too small. And so God has a way of being able to use problems to grow us. God uses problems to grow us. He uses problems to grow us. Oh, you grow up when you go through problems. It's really not about what you go through, it's about what you grow through. Adversity is the best friend of those who desire to do better. It really is. Adversity, it is the best friend of those who desire to do better. Because your trials come to make you strong. They will strengthen something in you. You build strength amid your trials, the adversities of life. And I want you to realize that whenever God gets ready to change us, he usually starts by getting our attention simply by putting us in a frustrating situation that is totally beyond our control. Anybody ever been there? Where God got your attention because you were put into a situation that was frustrating to you and you couldn't do a blessed thing about it? And if you are experiencing a crisis right now, it could be because God is getting ready to change you for the better. And you ought to just look for him and expect him to say, you know what, I know that I'm not going through all of this for nothing. At least if you climb this mountain, I'm telling you, you're going to build some strong quads. Your gastrocnemius are going to be absolutely out of this world. I mean, he's going to build something in you. You know, you don't build real strong muscles just walking on level ground. You got to climb. You got to, it takes some extra energy in order to burn and to climb. Do you know jumbo jets, when they take off, you know how many gallons of gasoline they burn in becoming airborne? 5,000 gallons just in becoming airborne, the jumbo jets. 5,000 gallons of gasoline is what it takes in order to get it airborne. You're going to expend some energy. You're going to go through some problems, and it feels like you're just leaking stuff out of your life by the gallons, trying to get airborne. You ever try to get started in anything? You ever try to start a business and it just, you got to pour in oodles and oodles and oodles of money, and you just wonder how much am I going to have to pour into this thing before I can get it where it is self-sufficient? You ever been there waiting on stuff to become self-sufficient, for this thing to take off and to become profitable? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Where you had to trust God when you didn't have it, and you the only reason that you invested in it is because you saw an opportunity. You saw potential here. You saw an ability to be able to grow and to develop. And see, God has a process by which he operates, and I want to give you the process of God. Number one, that there is a need for change or growth. That's the first thing, is that there is a need for change or growth. There's a need for change or growth. Number two, God then uses a crisis. He uses a crisis. The word crisis means turning point. God has to use the crisis, something to turn you from the way that you are originally headed, or else you'll wind up where you were originally set out to go. So he has to create a crisis when he wants to turn you. He has to create a crisis. And then number three, crisis creates hunger. Crisis creates a hunger. It'll create a hunger in your life. You go through a crisis, you start getting desperate for stuff. You start looking for information. You start looking for answers. You start looking for partners. You start looking for help. Whenever you get in a crisis, crisis creates a hunger. Anybody ever been there? And then number four, hunger creates a search. The hunger will put you on a search. You get hungry enough, you'll get out and go looking for something to eat. You be sitting there watching television, you get hungry enough, you get up and go to the refrigerator and go hunting. Because hunger creates a search. And then number five, the search leads us to a higher truth. It leads us to a higher understanding. The search leads us to a higher revelation. You don't get answers until you go on a search. Seek and ye shall find. You have to go looking for it. You have to go looking for it. Don't wait for it to come to you. You go to it. You go to it. See, there's a need, remember, for change or growth, and then God uses a crisis, and then the crisis that creates a hunger, and the hunger creates a search, and then the search leads us to a higher truth and understanding, or a higher revelation, and then number six, the revelation brings transformation to our life. That's the good news of the gospel, that God will bring a revolution, and then the truth shall set you free. Jesus said, behold, I give unto you the keys of the kingdom. And so sometimes you have to go through some things in order to get the keys. And then God will give you a key and unlock some stuff, and it actually transforms your life. Albert Einstein said that a problem cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created it. It means that you have to grow whenever you have a problem. A problem cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created it. It means that God is going to grow you amid your problem. So problems stretch us. Problems stretch us. Whenever you solve a problem, you arrive at a different level of knowledge. You arrive at a different level of authority. And you arrive at a different level of responsibility. You don't stay the same once you solve a problem. You grow, you develop in knowledge, in authority, in responsibility. May I remind you of this, that dissatisfaction is a precursor for change. God has to make you, he has to bring you to a position where you experience what I call holy discontent. Where you have to be dissatisfied where you are. Whenever you get to a point where you are dissatisfied where you are and with what you have, that's when you're ready for change. You got to get to a place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. The way you say, you know what, I don't believe that I was designed to live like this. I'm not going to bring the next year, the new year in like this. I'm not going to be like this. I can't keep on living this way. I'm sick and tired of living this way. And you realize something's got to give. And so dissatisfaction is a precursor for change. John Rohn said this. He said, disgust and resolve are two of the great emotions that lead us to change. Disgust and resolve. So sometimes you have to just become downright disgusted with the way things are to provoke you to change. And let me just remind you of this. It's okay to lose your pride over somebody that you love. But it's not okay to lose somebody that you love over your pride. Don't let your pride destroy your marriage. Don't let your pride destroy a good relationship. There's so many people. Pride causes a lot of problems for people. If they just lay their pride down, they're just so stubborn, so bullheaded. If they just lay down their pride and just be real, just admit, you could be wrong. Some of y'all live with some of these folks, and you know their pride won't even allow them. They can be wrong as two left shoes. And then they can come up with a rationalization to say, you know what, when you're going left and you got on two left shoes, then that make you walk easier. There's so much that could be resolved in some people if they would just lay down their pride. If they just lay down their pride. If they just lay down their pride. Have you ever been with somebody and you know you can't tell them anything? But what you suggested to them and they ignored came out to be exactly the way you said it, and then you have to watch them. And they don't know what to say and really what to do. They don't want to bring any acknowledgement to the fact that you were right and that you had told them. You just have to just let them go on the wrong way and drive 25 miles out of the way. And they'll never come back around and acknowledge to say, you know what, I should have listened to you. You were right. There's so many things that pride will do to relationships. And isn't it amazing how when you have a problem, your problem really doesn't come from strangers? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never lost any sleep because I was walking down the street and somebody saw me and they rolled their eyes at me. Your real problems don't come from folks that you don't know. Your greatest problem come to test you with something that you love. I'm going to say that again. Your greatest problems come to test you with something that you love. Your spouse, your children, your money, your career, your health, your dream. You ever notice how the stuff that you have problems with is stuff that you care about, stuff that's dear to your heart? The very stuff that you're tested with is the stuff that you love. And I want to give you a word that is a revelation from God. Problems are normal to life. Problems are normal to life. Don't think that you'll be the first one to have it and you won't be the last. Problems are normal to life. They are normal to life. They are normal to life. Now let me tell you this. If there are no ups and downs, it means that you're flatlining. You go to a hospital and you watch the monitor, and if it's not having some ups and downs, anything that is even keel all the time is dead. And can I give you a piece of advice? When the horse is dead, dismount. But it's amazing. Problems are very normal to life. Who told you that you wouldn't have problems once you were saved? The truth of the matter is that when God comes into your life, it doesn't mean that you won't have problems. It simply means problems won't have you. That's all, that problems won't have you. And remember, just by definition, a problem is that which can be solved. A problem is that which can be solved. A problem is that which can be solved. Marilyn Vos Savant said, being defeated is often a temporary condition, but giving up is what makes it permanent. A problem can be solved. It can be solved. It may not be solved immediately, but a problem is that which can be solved. Someone said that quitting is the permanent solution to a temporary problem. But it can be solved. And if it cannot be solved, it is not a problem, it is a fact of life. And here's my admonition to you: never confuse a problem with a fact of life. Never confuse a problem with a fact of life. I love something that William James said. He said, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. It is our greatest weapon against stress. It's our ability to choose one thought over another. Are you aware of the fact that your eyes are the gateway into your mind? And whatever your eyes take a picture of, listen to me carefully, whatever your eyes take a picture of, your brain develops. That's why the image that stays in your mind becomes real in time. Whatever your eyes take a picture of, your brain develops. It's like a dark room. You're exposed to the negative and your brain will develop it in your life. That's why you have to guard your eyes, the eye gate of what you expose yourself to, because dark moments in your life become your dark room. And the photographs of your life develop there. So learn to embrace the dark moments because they actually help to develop you. You don't develop in the light, you develop in the dark. People don't see you developing. All of a sudden, you just step out and they, bam, you have developed. And they wonder, where did those hips come from? Bam, where did that come from? It just looks like it happened overnight because you seem to develop overnight, but what happens, you develop in the dark. You get ready for some carrots, you don't see the carrot growing on top of the ground, it's underground. You only see a little green foliage, but the real development is happening under the surface. Your real development happens in the dark. People don't see where your real development is occurring. A champion does not show up in the ring. That's not where champions are made. That's where they are exposed. But that's not where they were made. They were made back in the gym, just, practicing, in and out, over and over, day by day, diligently, consistently. That's where they develop in the dark, where people don't see all of the stuff that went into your trying to make it. They didn't see your staying up late at night trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do and how am I going to pay this and how am I going to juggle this and robbing Peter to pay Paul. They don't see when you are operating and everybody think that you're big balling and you trying to stay up at night trying to figure out how do I pay my car note and my house note or my rent and keep all of this stuff. How in the world do I do that? And everybody is thinking that your success was overnight. If it was overnight success, it was a long, long night. But let me say this to you, never make your problems about yourself. That's for narcissistic people who are the center of their own universe and they think that everything in the whole world revolves around them, that it's always got to be about them. Those are sick puppies. I feel sorry for narcissistic people, and I feel even sorrier for people who live with them. But don't make your problems only about you. Think about others rather than yourself. Because a major cause of negative thinking and poor mental health is self-absorption. Self-absorption. Just being consumed with nobody but yourself. Selfishness ultimately hurts not only the people around a self-centered person, but selfishness hurts the selfish person himself. It's amazing. Someone asked a very, very distinguished psychiatrist, Dr. Carl Menninger, they said, what would you advise a person to do if he felt a nervous breakdown coming on? Anybody want to know the answer to that? And most expected him to reply, you should consult a psychiatrist. But he said nothing about a psychiatrist. To their astonishment, Dr. Menninger said this. He says, lock up your house, go across the railway tracks and find someone in need and do something to help that person. Now, isn't that interesting? In order to help save your mind, lock your house up, find somebody else who's in trouble, and go across the way and help them. And your helping them will actually help you. See, when you give to help somebody else, God will send it back and it blesses you. That's why the Bible says that it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. Because when you give, you receive the gift of joy. You receive the gift of peace. You receive the gift of purpose. You receive the gift of accomplishment. You receive a gift of meaning. And understanding in your own life is so interesting. Do you realize that generous people are rarely ever mentally ill? Did you know that? Generous people are rarely ever mentally ill. Mentally ill folks are folks who have closed in and they're focused on nobody but themselves. They don't want to help anybody. They won't give anything to anybody. And they keep on getting and getting. The stagnation of that breeds a Dead Sea mentality in them where no life can live. Depression is a form of anger. Depression is nothing more than anger turned inward. The people who express it and get it out, they provoke you, but now they're walking around jolly-go-lucky. They done got it out of them and done spoiled, ruin your day. And they walking around jolly-go-lucky, but the depressed person is the one that closes in, won't talk to anybody, and it becomes anger turned inward. And it manifests itself in depression, and you don't even want to get out of the bed some days. You barely want to get up and wash your face, brush your teeth, because depression has set in, and you're angry and don't want anybody to tell you anything. You don't want to see anybody. You don't want to deal with anything, because it is anger that is turned inward oftentimes, which manifests itself in what we call depression. But may I suggest this to you, that the size of your problem predicts the size of your future. If you got a big future, you'll have big problems. Can I say it to you this way? The bigger the dog, the more fleas he's got on his back. But the size of your problem predicts the size of your future. There was a man down in Florida by the name of David Miller in Jensen Beach, Florida. He had a restaurant business there, and he had so many folks coming into his business that he started having a problem with people waiting to be seated. And it dawned on him, he says, why don't I create some kind of a paging system where a person doesn't have to stand around, but I can give them a pager, and when their table is ready, it'll buzz. Now, he's in the restaurant business, but he had a problem. And out of his problem came an answer. And he developed a paging system that would vibrate to let people know when their table was ready. He started making more money selling his paging system to 25,000 other restaurants and country clubs. It started doing bigger business than his restaurant was doing. And in fact, he started doing so much business that Motorola got into the business. But it's amazing how God let his problem predict the size of his future.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.